we're going to be talking about my top 10 most wanted champions in Raid Shadow Legends. This should be a fairly interesting video because I'm sure some of these will be very surprising. Before you go into the comments and start yelling at me because I didn't pick the champion you wanted the most, I'm going to go ahead and show you my roster so you can somewhat get an idea of who I already have and why they might not be on the list if you feel like I snubbed them. I'm not going to showcase this for too long. I'm not going to go over the champions or anything like that, but you can go ahead and pause the video and take a look through here if you'd like. And you can see some of the champions that I am rocking on my account. You can kind of compare it to your own account and see, how your list would match up compared to mine. I am quite low on champions at the moment, though, apart from the ones I already have maxed out because I've just got done doing a bunch of champion training. Back to back champion training due to, of course, the multiple Titan events that we've had and all those sorts of good things. So I still have a lot of legendaries I haven't even built out. Legendary books are quite hard to come by because I have been free to play now for probably about 3 to 4 months, I would say. And then very low spends before that. So definitely not the easiest thing to come by any means. This is in no particular order. We're going to go ahead and hop in with the 10th champion, which is actually going to be Nekrit the Great. A little perspective, I am done basically most PvE content in the game apart from Shogun's Grove, and City of Centranos Hard. So that'll give you some perspective, and I am, of course, pushing a lot in PvP, so I think Nekrit would be a very good way to go. He does, of course, bring the ally protection and the strengthen that he's known for. He's got shields. He's got all sorts of crazy things that he brings into the battle, as well as block debuffs. And for a long time, he has been the meta if you're trying to get a squishy nuker to survive inside PvP. He has been a little bit power crept recently because of one champion who will be on the list later, actually. So of course, Nekrit the Great is number 10 on my most wanted list. The next champion we're going to go ahead and talk about is actually a former fusion, and that is going to be Newt Gnut here himself. I do not have a single copy of him. I know people talk about him quite often when it comes to somebody that they'd like to have, a secondary copy of, but I don't have this guy in a single way. So I did miss the fusion. I was essentially just on vacation at that point, and I couldn't be bothered to put into the, I couldn't be bothered to put in the effort, essentially. So I don't have Newt. I'd love to get a copy of him. I'd love to get duplicates of him. He makes stuff like Fire Knight hard and a lot of Centranos just very trivial, so a champion that I'd definitely love to have. He's coming in at number 9. Excuse me. Number 8 is actually going to be a tie between two champions. The first one being Creodin the Blue, and the second one being up here, I believe, in the High Elves, which is going to be Neldor Rhymeblade. Both of these guys doing something very similar, which is a lot of freezes on the A1, which again harkens back to that Fire Knight hard, as you've seen from my team showcase maybe last week or so. I'm only farming Fire Knight stage 6, so having one of these guys would essentially open up my team to being able to consistently farm Fire Knight hard stage 10. I unfortunately don't have either of these champions, even though I've tried to pull for them on the boosted summonings events, but alas, I was not lucky enough to be able to pull them. I'm fairly certain they have lower pull rates than the rest of the epics in the game, though, so it is what it is. I'm sure I'll get them eventually, and by that time they'll probably be useless, but that's how Raid goes, right? Number 7. We're going back to the Undead Hordes. This is going to be Siphi the Lost Bride. I still don't have a Siphi. I don't have a Rotos either. She is absolutely fantastic. If you've played Raid for a little while, you definitely know Siphi. Irresistible Sleep on the A1, block debuffs, increased speed, increased turn meter, and increased defense on an AoE for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown on the A2. Insane Revive. She cleanses Rotos, heals everybody by, at the start of their turn, removing freeze and fear from them as well, and then a resistance in all battles by 80%. Incredibly fast champion as well. She is the turn meter booster for a lot of teams, and she is essentially the only way to set up any sort of defensive nukers in the game if you are running one. And I already have Harima, so setting up a Harima would definitely be very, very nice. So I'm definitely hoping to get a Siphi at some point. She's definitely on this list for good reason. Number 6 is going to be in the Knights Revenant. This is actually the champion that has helped to power creep Nekrit. So this is going to be White King Narcisse. I won't lie, I was very tempted to go ahead and start swiping the credit card to get enough shards for Narcisse on the guaranteed event, because this guy is ridiculously meta changing. He single-handedly took most of the Taurus Marichka teams out of defenses in the game. He is absolutely insane. Of course, I do have Taurus and Marichka, so running into this guy consistently in live arena can be a little bit frustrating, so definitely a champion that I want to get. I already went for the fusion, the Ankara side of it, so I'll have my duo complete there if I manage to pull him, which would be pretty nifty. Next up, we're hopping back over to the Undead Hordes, and we're going to be talking about Rotos. Much the same way that I want Siphi, I definitely want Rotos to be comboed with her. Just such a survivable champion, lots of damage, very decent base stats, apart from his HP at least, right? But this guy is incredible, one of the only champions that has damage based on attack and HP as well. Extra turn mechanics, block, revive, decrease max HP on the enemies. He is an absolute monster. Used to be a fusion back in the day, but I was not playing consistently at the time when he was a fusion, so unfortunately I was unable to get him, but definitely one of my most wanted champions. We're going over to Demon Spawn. This is going to be number 5, and that is Duchess Lilitu. Duchess is absolutely fantastic. Again, somebody who has unfortunately been power crept a little bit recently due to the introduction of some absolutely insane champions, but she still is one of the best revivers, one of the best protectors, and one of the best setup champions for squishy nukers inside the arena as well. And she brings speed in all battles aura, so you can use her essentially anywhere. She's placing perfect veils, so she's an absolute beast for somewhere like the Hydra as well. Very, very good base stats on this champion, definitely one of my most wanted. I've been wanting her for a significant duration, and I have not been lucky enough to get her, but I'm sure it is coming someday. We have number 3, which is actually going to be a champion that surprises no one, and that is Lazarius. I do believe I still have a 4-star awakening for him. Let me take a look here. I had an awakening for him at some point, which I guess I sold it, but it might have even been a 6-star. I pulled something absolutely crazy that I definitely should have kept, but I didn't. But Lazarius, I definitely want him. He is a nuker that can place everybody's skills on cooldown. Both forms on this champion are absolutely fantastic. Everybody loves this guy. He's very frustrating to go against in PvP because he is an incredible powerhouse. You essentially have to ban him or you just risk losing the fight. I believe he can revive as well, which is absolutely crazy, but that guy is incredible. Number 2 is, I'm going to be honest, she doesn't deserve to be talked about near somebody like Lazarius or the next champion, number 1, but it is actually going to be Valkyrie. Valkyrie's definitely been at the top of my most wanted list since I started playing the game as well, with her AoE shield as well as counterattack, and then her passive, of course, she is absolutely insane in something like a supersonic set these days for PvP, of course. Very decent base stats on this champion. She has so much utility pretty much everywhere in the game, and unfortunately I have not been able to pull her quite yet, but here is fingers crossed, and we're hoping, right? And number 1 is going to surprise no one, I think. I'm going to be over in the High Elves. This is basically Duchess Lilitu if she took a bunch of steroids and became ridiculously overpowered. This is Star Sage Galathir. He can place a perfect veil. He revives everybody. The revive is better than Duchess. He has a full cleanse. He places a block debuff for 2 turns. He fills their turn meter. He can then metamorph into his A2, which is going to go ahead and essentially place an increased accuracy on everybody, then a decreased resistance on your team, and then a stun on your team. And not only that, he removes all buffs from your team, then he places a block active skills. It doesn't trigger counterattacks, so you can't do anything about it. He attacks all enemies on the A1, decreasing the turn meter of everybody. This champion is broken as hell right now. There's not really a consistent way to counter him, I wouldn't say. If you're facing this guy in the live arena, you basically either have to ban him or you can just leave the match early and just save yourself the time, because this guy is ridiculous. As you can see, his ratings kind of back that up as well. Straight 5s in arena offense, defense, and faction wars. This guy is fantastically broken. He's a lot of fun to play with, not so much fun to play against. So he's definitely number 1, deservedly on my most wanted champions list. Let me know, is there any champions I missed? Is there any that you desperately want that I might have, or that might have made it onto this list as well? If you have the time, go ahead and leave your top 10 down in the comments below. I'd be very happy to read through it and give you my thoughts on it as well. Thank you guys all so much for the support on the channel, and I'll see you next time.